In a few hours' time, the Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden will address the UN General Assembly in New York, warning that artificial intelligence is developing too fast for legislators to keep up. His speech comes ahead of the world's first AI Safety Summit, which will take place in the UK in November. But leaders at the UN gathering have been discussing concerns over how and when to regulate AI. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said governments alone will not be able to tame AI and called for a global entity to monitor it. And President Biden called for more cooperation.
Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence hold both enormous potential and enormous peril. We need to be sure they are used as tools of opportunity, not as weapons of oppression. Together with leaders around the world, the United States is working to strengthen rules and policies so AI technologies are safe before they're released to the public. To make sure we govern this technology, not the other way around, having it govern us.
Concerns are increasing given the pervasive nature of artificial intelligence. And here in the UK, police forces are using AI to help identify criminals, including through facial recognition cameras. And as AI evolves from medicine to the military, there are now questions on how to regulate these emerging technologies. Well, joining me now are Dr. Mathilde Pavis, AI lawyer and lecturer at the University of Exeter in the UK, and from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the US, Professor Regina Barzilay. Professor Barzilay, to you first of all. We've heard from the UN Secretary General, even Elon Musk wants a referee for AI. Do you reckon we need some sort of global body to oversee it?
I think the question is, what does it mean global? So I think that regulation of AI is really, in my opinion, is industry specific, because the regulation should be proportional to the amount of risk the technology brings. So clearly the regulation of e-commerce should be very different from regulating the police application that you were describing or healthcare application. So I assume that, in some short time, we would see regulations which are industry specific and country specific, because in some ways they need to work for the local context.
Okay, so Mathilde, what are Oliver Dowden, the UK Deputy Prime Minister, the UN Secretary General, what are they all getting at? What do they actually want, and do you agree with it?
Yes, I agree that an international approach to AI regulation is absolutely needed, because we will access the technology, its content, its services globally. So it makes sense for countries, businesses, and people to have a harmonized framework. Now, what are they getting at is a great question, because it was really surprising to hear that message for regulation coming from the UK, knowing that a year ago, and they reconfirmed in March 2023, that their approach to AI regulation was one of light touch and low intervention in order to support the innovation in this space. So I don't know if the UK is signaling a shift in position towards more regulation than what it had been working on so far.
Right, and Regina, you're particularly expert, aren't you, in the field of clinical AI, and that might come up in this AI Safety Summit that's been hosted in the UK, the first of its kind, we're told. Are you worried about what might come out of that? Might it stifle innovation?
Yes, so my area of expertise...
Regina, sorry, that one's to you.
Thank you. So I think that we already see the negative results of confusing regulation in the area of clinical AI produced by FDA and other European agencies, because various questions is constantly being updated. It doesn't give a lot of confidence to consumers of the technology and developers of the technology how to ensure that whatever they produce is compliant. And we see that the regulation are typically way behind the advancement of the technology, and the lack of understanding of what this technology can and cannot do is very obvious in the current regulation. So the hope is that bringing together many stakeholders, both people who consume this technology, regulators, and people who actually develop technology, we will hopefully see, more updated and more comprehensive regulations, which are currently lacking.
And Mathilde, you believe in a global approach to this, but I mean, people will say, how on earth do you expect to get the likes of Russia and China on board? They're just going to pay no attention, are they?
I mean, an international approach is what we need. Whether we can achieve it and how quickly is another matter. The challenge with harmonizing regulations in AI internationally is that countries need to be coming together to agree on a political stance, to an extent, an economic stance, as well as bringing different legal cultures. It's a hard feat. I think the first and most effective step would be to start at the national level, see what works and what works well, and extract from that key principles to apply cross-border. And countries could start where they have good diplomatic, political, and economic relationships, like the UK with the US, the UK with the EU, and that would be a really productive step forward.
But Regina, you're in no doubt that we actually need this. People sitting at home worrying about what AI might mean for their own lives. There needs to be some guardrails, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm always thinking about it that, as any technology, you can use it for good and not for good. And it's really up to the regulators to ensure that we are compliant. And you can see that even the most obvious things that we have for other consumer devices, like our cars or our coffee makers, like these buttons that allows you kind of to see if your device is not working. Many times they lack in AI products that are delivered to the market. So the AI would continue make prediction, even though it's totally over distribution.
Okay.
So I think to ensure that these tools are used in safe, in a safe way.
We have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Fascinating discussion, Professor Barzilay and Dr. Pavis. Thank you so much for speaking with us.